Greetings, fellow Obsidians of the vast Obsidian community. Welcome to another video in the Obsidian for Noobs video series. In today's video, I'm going to cover how to create and use links in Obsidian. I'll explain basic and intermediate concepts in detail, and then I'll briefly mention some of the lesser used topics near the end of the video. In particular, this video will be divided into 7 parts as follows. First, I'll define what a link is. Then I'll define some basic terms that I'll be using throughout the video. In particular, source notes and target notes, and internal links and external links. Then I'll describe the difference between forward links and backlinks, then how to create forward links, followed by aliased links, linking to subheadings, and finally linking to websites, which involves external links. Let's begin at the logical starting point. What is a link? Arguably, Obsidian's greatest power lies in its utilization of links. In Obsidian, a link is a connection between 2 nodes that allows you to jump from one node to another node. That is, to move the focus from one node to another node in your vault. You can also link notes to canvases and other files within your vault. For example, PDFs, image files, video files, and so forth. For the sake of simplicity, I'm going to refer to notes throughout this discussion. But please realize that canvases and other files can be linked to as well. Okay, some important basic terms. First, source notes versus target notes. A source note is the note in which you are creating the link. You can think of it as the starting point for your link. A target note is the note or file that you are linking to from the source note. It is the destination of your link. As the illustration shows, links are created in the source node and they link to a target node. When you click on the link in the source node, that causes the target node to replace the source node in the central work area of your vault. In other words, the target node now becomes the focus. Obsidian utilizes 2 types of links, internal links and external links. Internal links are, as the name implies, links to documents or files within your currently active Obsidian vault. External links can be links to websites or to files in other vaults. I'm going to focus my discussion primarily on internal links, since they are the ones most often used, but I will demonstrate how to create external links to websites at the end of this video. Links typically link to the heading or title of the target node or file, although it is possible to link to subheadings within a node, and I'll cover that later in the video. Links appear underlined and as colored text in Obsidian. The default color is Obsidian's hallmark purple color, but that color can be changed in Obsidian settings. As I noted, when you click on a link in the source node, Obsidian will open the target node as the active node in the vault work area, replacing the source node. Please realize that by default, Obsidian automatically updates internal links in your vault when you rename a file. In other words, if you have several links in your project and you rename files that happen to be target files in these links, Obsidian will automatically update the links. You do not have to go in yourself manually and make those changes. If you would prefer to be prompted instead, you can disable this feature under Settings. Finally, you can return to the source node after executing a link in one of 2 ways. You can either click the back arrow in the upper left corner of the work area, or you can click the backlink to the source node in the right side panel Backlinks tab. Let me demonstrate all of this now. Okay, I'm in my vault now. I have several links here in this note. Let me zoom in so you can see it more clearly. By the way, Control and plus keys to zoom in, Control and minus keys to zoom out, and finally Control and 0 keys to return to the normal zoom state. Okay, the first link I have here is a link to a node. I'm in my source node now, which is titled Link Example 1, and I'm linking to a target node titled Node X. When I click the link, Node X replaces my source node as the active node in the work area of my vault. You can see it in the Active tab. I have used CSS to color the tabs in my vault so that the active tab stands out from the inactive ones. If I click the left arrow key in the upper left corner of this node, I'll return to the source node. And you can see now the source node is the active node. So when you click a link, the source node or source file becomes the active node or file in your work area. And as you can see, as I mentioned earlier, the links appear in purple color and underlined in Obsidian. You can change the color in settings, and you can remove the underlining with CSS. Okay, I have a link here to a PDF document. When I click that, the document takes center stage, and I can return by hitting the back arrow. This is a link to an image file and a link to a canvas. By the way, in a previous video, I mentioned that Obsidian has a wonderful feature where you can preview the target of a link by holding the Control key down on your keyboard and hovering the mouse pointer over the link. You can see now my target note appears in its own little window, and I can scroll to the end of it. You can see the entire target note or target file previewed in this manner. I'll do it with the PDF. Hold the Control key down, hover over it, and the PDF opens in its own window. I can scroll through it. Same with the image file. Canvases work a little different. You will not see the actual canvas. You'll see a representation of it with representations of the cards that are in your canvas with the appropriate color, but you will not see the actual content of that canvas. I had mentioned that there are two ways to return to the source node from the target node. Let me take the link to Node X. One way, as I just demonstrated, was to click on this left arrow in the upper left corner of the work area. The other option is to use the backlink, which is in the right side panel. This is the Backlinks tab, and it will list backlinks to source nodes. So if I click on this backlink, I'll return to the source node. Now that I've introduced the topic of backlinks, let's talk about them in greater detail. There are two types of links used in Obsidian: forward links and backlinks. A forward link is a link from the source node to the target node. It is an outgoing link. Forward links are created and exist within the source node. As we saw, when you click on a forward link, Obsidian opens the target node in the main work area as the active node. And as I've also mentioned, Obsidian automatically updates internal links in your vault when you rename a file. A backlink is a link from the target node back to the source node. That is, it's the reverse of a forward link. It is an incoming link that is reflected back to its source. When you create a forward link in a node, Obsidian automatically creates a corresponding backlink, which points back to the source node from the target node. Backlinks allow you to see which nodes, if any, are linking to a particular node. And as I just demonstrated, you can see a list of the backlinks associated with a node by clicking on the Backlinks panel icon in the right sidebar. If you click on a backlink in the Backlinks panel, Obsidian will open that node in the main area as the active node. In other words, it returns you back to the source node. Obsidian's use of forward links and backlinks is referred to as bidirectional linking, and it is one of Obsidian's most powerful features. Let me demonstrate that now. Okay, I'm back in the vault. As I demonstrated a moment ago, if I click on a link in a source node, that brings me to the target node, and I can return back to the source node by clicking the left arrow in the upper left corner or clicking the backlink. Again, this is the Backlinks tab in the right side panel. It will list all the backlinks for a particular node. In other words, it's listing all the nodes that link to this node. And if I click the backlink, it brings me back to the source node. Remember that it is you, the user, who creates forward links. Backlinks are created automatically by Obsidian as a consequence of the forward links that you create. There are several ways to create forward links in Obsidian. The first way is manually. To create a link manually in Obsidian, begin by typing two open brackets. Obsidian will immediately open a pop-up window that lists all your project's nodes, canvases, and files. Select the node or file that you want to link to, and Obsidian will complete the link by adding two closing brackets. And you will see the link in the purple underlined format that we saw earlier. Let me demonstrate that. I begin by typing two left brackets. And Obsidian immediately opens a scroll listing of all the files in my vault. I select the file I want to link to, and Obsidian completes the link. Press the Enter key, and you have it, purple and underlined. If I click that link, it brings me to the source node, it brings me to the target node. And I can return using the left arrow key in the upper left corner or by clicking the backlink. So again, to create a link manually, type 2 left brackets. Obsidian presents you with a list of all the files in your vault. Select the file you want to link to and press enter, and you have your link. The second way to create forward links in Obsidian is to use the Notes right-click menu, which I covered in detail in another video. I'll go through it quickly now, though. Right-click anywhere in a note, select Add Link from the menu that pops up. Once again, Obsidian responds by giving you the brackets and the list of all the files in your vault. Select the file you want to be the target. Press the Enter key, and you have your link. There's the link. This time I'll use the back arrow to go back. The third way to create a forward link in Obsidian is to drag a note from the File panel file structure in the left side panel. When you drag a note from the File panel into your active note, Obsidian will automatically create a link to that note. I'll demonstrate that now. I'm dragging this note into my active note, and Obsidian automatically creates the link to it. And I'll use the backlink to go back. Now, an important point here, if I drag any other type of file from the file structure in the left side panel onto a note, Obsidian will embed that file in the note. It will not create a link to it. It will embed the file. For example, if I drag a PDF or an image file onto this note, and I'll do that now with this PNG image file, you will see that Obsidian embeds the file in the note. It has embedded that image file in my note. The thing that distinguishes an embedded file from a link is the presence of an exclamation symbol in front of the open brackets. I don't know if you can see that here. Right? That makes the file embedded. If I want to convert this embedded file to a link, I simply delete the exclamation symbol. Now I have a link to that PNG. I can link to it, go back to the source note. I can preview it using the trick of holding the control key down and hovering. Right, the same would be true for a PDF file. If I were to drag a PDF file onto here, Obsidian would embed that file in the note. And if I want to, I can change that embedded file to a link by deleting the exclamation symbol in front of the link. Let me show that. Here's a PDF. Drag it. It's embedded. If I delete the exclamation symbol, I now have a link to that PDF. I'll hold the control key down and hover to show you the preview. Okay, so just to review that, if you drag a note from the left side panel file structure into a note, Obsidian creates a link to that note. If you drag any other kind of file into your active note, Obsidian will embed that file in the note. And you can convert that embedded file to a link by deleting the exclamation symbol in front of the open brackets. Another way to create links in Obsidian is to invoke the command panel, which you do by holding Control and P. Obsidian presents you with a list of all the commands available to you, and we want the command Add Internal Link. If you don't see the command immediately, just go to the search bar at the top, type in link. It'll give you all the commands associated with links, and the one we're interested in is Add Internal Link. When I click that, Obsidian gives me my pairs of brackets and the list of all my files. And as we saw in the other cases, I simply pick the file I want to link to, and Obsidian creates the link for me. So to review the 4 ways to create a forward link in Obsidian. First, manually, type 2 open brackets. Obsidian will put in the close brackets and give you a list of all the files in your vault. Select the file you want to link to, press the Enter key, and you have the link. Method number 2 is to use the Notes right-click menu. Right-click in a note, select Add Link, and the same thing will happen as with the manual example. You'll get the 2 sets of brackets and the list of all the files in your vault. Select the file you want to link to, press Enter, and you've got your link. Method 3, drag a note from the side panel, from the file structure in the left side panel, onto your note, and Obsidian will automatically create a link to that note. Remember, however, that if you drag any other kind of file, like an image file or a PDF, Obsidian will embed that file in your note. And if you want to turn it into a link, you have to delete the exclamation symbol in front of the open brackets. And finally, the last method for creating a note is to invoke the command palette by pressing the Control and P keys. From the command palette, select Add Internal Link, and you will see the same procedure as before. Obsidian will give you the 2 sets of brackets and a list of all the files in your vault, and you select the file you want to link to. One other point I want to make here. If I manually go to create a link, and I want to create a link to a note that does not yet exist, in other words, rather than selecting something from my list of existing notes and files, I want to create a new note that does not exist yet. Let me call it New Note. You can type the name of that note and press Enter. Now, Obsidian has not yet created this note. You have a link to a non-existent note. If, however, I now click on this, Obsidian creates the note and brings me to it. And you can see it here in the listing. So to review that, if you want to link to a note that does not yet exist, in other words, you're anticipating creating this note, and you're in a document now where you want to link to this note that you're anticipating creating, simply create a link manually. In other words, type the 2 left brackets, and then type the title that you anticipate giving to this note. Then press the Enter key to complete the link and click on the link. You must click on this link for the note to be created. Obsidian will then create that note and bring you right to it. Okay, let's move on now. I'm now going to discuss the concept of aliased links. This is a very useful feature that Obsidian has included when working with links. When you create a link, the link's display text will be the exact title of the note or file you are linking to. This can be a problem if the target note's title is unusually long or cumbersome. For example, let's say that you want to link to a note that is titled Common Symptoms of the Flu. The text that will be displayed for this link will appear as Common Symptoms of the Flu. In other words, the exact title of the note is the text that's displayed when you create the link. This is a bit wordy in this example, and I might want to make the link's display text appear more succinct. This can be an even bigger problem when you link to files such as images and PDFs because Obsidian includes the file's extension, in other words, JPEG or PNG or PDF, in the link's display text. And that looks pretty sloppy. Fortunately, Obsidian provides a way for you to change a link's display text to suit your needs. Such links are called aliased links. The procedure to create an aliased link is to place a vertical bar after the note's title, followed by the text you want displayed. And please note that no spaces should exist between the vertical bar and the text on either side of it. This vertical bar is called a pipe symbol, and it's typically found above the backslash on most keyboards. So here's our example. I've created this link to a note titled Common Symptoms of the Flu. I know it's a link because of the double brackets, and that's the note's title. If I create the link exactly like this, it will display this way, purple and underlined, but with the exact text of the title of the note, Common Symptoms of the Flu. Let's say I don't want the link to display this way. Let's say I want to simplify it, and I want the link to say Flu Symptoms. This is where I use an aliased link. To create the aliased link, I begin the normal way, 2 open brackets. I put the exact title of the target note, and then I put the pipe symbol. That's the vertical bar. And I follow that with whatever text I want displayed for the link. It can be anything I want. In this case, I choose it to be Flu Symptoms. This link will display in my Obsidian note like this: Flu Symptoms, purple and underlined. In other words, aliased links give you the power to control what text is displayed for your links. Again, to create an aliased link, begin double open brackets, the exact title of the target note, the pipe symbol, and then the text you want displayed for that link. In other words, this is the alias for the actual link. And I'll demonstrate that now. Okay, I'm back in my vault. I've created the link for common symptoms of the flu. I'll show you the structure. It's what we know. 2 pairs of open and closed brackets. The title of the target node is in between. If I click that link, I will go to that note entitled Common Symptoms of the Flu. I can return using the left arrow or the backlink. Now, if I want to simplify the text that is displayed for that link, and I want it to simply say flu symptoms instead of common symptoms of the flu, I create this link that I'm highlighting now. And again, notice the structure. 2 open brackets, that's always the way we begin a link. Then I have the exact title of the target note. As we saw, the title is Common Symptoms of the Flu. Then I have my pipe symbol. There's that vertical bar, the pipe symbol. And I follow that with whatever text I want displayed for the link. Doesn't have to be flu symptoms, it can be anything I want. Once I've created that link, what is displayed is what comes after the vertical bar, after the pipe symbol. It's still linking to the same note that this links to. I can demonstrate that with the preview feature. There's my target note, there's my flu symptoms, and here's this note. They both link to the same note. I'll demonstrate it again with this example. Here I'm linking to a PDF file. The title of that PDF file is How to Write Mathematical Notations in Obsidian. This is the file. Notice something here. As I mentioned previously, Obsidian includes the file extension when you link to files other than notes. If I were linking to an image file, I would see the extension for that file, perhaps JPEG or BMP or PNG. This makes the link look kind of sloppy. So if I want to not only simplify the link, in other words, shorten it, but also I don't want the file extension to show, I can use this technique of creating an aliased link. And that's the link I have below. 2 open brackets, the exact title of the file I'm linking to, the pipe symbol, the vertical bar, and then whatever text I want displayed for the link. In this case, I decided I wanted to say math notation in Obsidian. That's the link I get. Cleaner, shorter, nicer. Naturally, if I click it, I go to the very same file that I went to before. Aliased links give us tremendous power to control how links display in our notes. Okay, up till now, I've been linking directly to notes or files in my vault. But it is possible to create links in Obsidian that link directly to a specific subheading within a note. This is done by placing a single hash symbol between the note's title and the subheading title in the link. In case you're very new to Obsidian and you're not sure what subheadings are, let me take a moment to go over that topic very quickly. Okay, I'm back in my vault. When we say we're linking to subheadings, we're talking about this. Obsidian gives us the option to create 6 different styles of subheadings within our notes, and they're distinguished by the various sizes. The colors here I put myself using CSS. Obsidian doesn't naturally change the colors of your headings. It's strictly a difference in size. Subheadings are delineated by the number of hash marks that precede them. So 6 hash marks create a heading 6 style. And by the way, it doesn't have to say heading 6. It can be any text you want. I just put 6 hash symbols, and I could put any text. 5 hash symbols gives you a heading 5 size, 4 hash symbols gives you heading 4, and so forth and so forth. So when I talk about linking to a subheading in a note, here's what I mean. Here's a note entitled Great Battles of World War II. And within that note, I have 2 paragraphs of text, each identified by a subheading. One is entitled Pearl Harbor, and the other is Battle of Midway. These happen to be heading 4 style, in other words, 4 hash marks. Obsidian allows us to link directly to subheadings within our notes. This is particularly handy if you have a note that is extremely long and has many, many sections, each one identified by a subheading. You can link to that particular paragraph or setting within your note by linking to its subheading. And I'll demonstrate that now. See how these links are structured. Again, I have my note title, Great Battles of World War II, as we just saw, and I'm going to link to the Battle of Midway subheading. The way I create the link to that subheading is by putting a single hash symbol between the note's title and the subheading title. So my entire link begins, as always, with two open brackets, the exact title of the target note, a hash symbol to indicate that I'm going to link to a subheading, and then the exact title of the subheading I'm going to link to, and then naturally the two closing brackets to complete the link. Now please note that when you do a link to a subheading, you always put one single hash symbol between the note title and the subheading title, regardless of how many hash symbols are in the subheading in the note. Even if it's a heading 4 or a heading 6 that has 4 hash symbols or 6 hash symbols, you still only put one single hash symbol in the link. The hash symbol simply is assigned to Obsidian saying I'm linking to a subheading here. This link will appear this way in my note. In other words, exactly what you see within the brackets. Great Battles of World War II, # Battle of Midway. Let me demonstrate that link, and then we'll clean this up using aliases. Okay, I'm back in my vault. Here's that link to the Battle of Midway subheading in the Great Battles of World War II note. It's structured exactly as I just showed you. Open brackets, the exact title of the note, Great Battles of World War II, a single hash symbol, and then the title of the subheading I want to link to. When I click on this link, it takes me to that subheading, Battle of Midway, within the note, Great Battles of World War II. If I want to, I could create a link to the other subheading in that note. Let me copy the note's title. And I'll create a new link, two open brackets, note's title. I will type a hash symbol to indicate I'm linking to a subheading. And Obsidian gives me a list of all the subheadings in that note. This time I want to go to the other subheading, which was Pearl Harbor. And there's the link. Note title, single hash symbol, subheading title. Now if I click on this link, it brings me to the Pearl Harbor subheading in the Great Battles of World War II note. So that's a link to a subheading in a note. Now as you can see, the structure of the link in this format is not appealing at all, namely because it puts the hash symbol in the link. In fact, it puts everything from the link in the link. I can use aliased links to clean this up, and I've done that down here. What I've done is two open brackets to begin the link, the exact title of the note I'm linking to, Great Battles of World War II, a hash symbol to indicate that I'm going to link to a subheading, the exact title of the subheading I want to link to, and then a vertical bar, a pipe symbol, to indicate that I want to create an aliased link. And after that pipe symbol, I put the text I want displayed. In this case, I wanted to say Battle of Midway. So I've combined the aliased link with the link to a subheading in one big link. If I click on that, it brings me to the Battle of Midway subheading within the Great Battles of World War II note. Let's review the structure again. Double open brackets, exact title of the note I'm linking to, a single hash symbol to indicate that I'm going to link to a subheading, the title of the subheading I'm linking to, a pipe symbol indicating that I'm going to create an alias link, and then whatever text I want to be displayed for this link. So again, it's whatever's after the pipe symbol that is displayed, in this case, Battle of Midway. Here it is explained in great detail. I'll review it one more time. This is an alias link to a subheading in a note. The general structure is double open brackets, the exact title of the target note, single hash symbol indicating that I'm going to link to a subheading, the exact subheading title, pipe symbol indicating that I'm going to create an alias link and the text I want displayed for this link. In this case, for my link display text, after the pipe symbol, I put the Battle of Midway, and that's what would be displayed. This big link here would display in my note as this, simply the Battle of Midway, purple and underlined. Okay, thus far we've been talking exclusively about internal links, links among documents and files within your vault. Let me talk a little bit now about external links. The most common type of external link is a link to a website. You can link from within a note to a website out on the internet. This is the structure. You put the display text for the link, in other words, the text you want displayed to identify this link, in single brackets. Then open parentheses and the website URL in those parentheses. In other words, the address of the website, and close the parentheses. Again, the text you want displayed for the link within single brackets, no space here, and then within parentheses, the exact address or URL of the website you want to link to. This whole link here would display in my note like this. In other words, only the text in the brackets is displayed. Naturally, it's purple and underlined because it's a link, and since it's an external link to a website, Obsidian will also put this symbol here, which is a square with a little arrow sticking out the right corner. Let me demonstrate this in Obsidian now. Okay, once again, I'm back in my vault. Here's that link to the Google website. There's the structure. Single brackets, and whatever text I want displayed. I don't have to have Google here. I could put search engine. I could put any text I want. Close the brackets, open parentheses, and the exact URL of the website I want to link to, and then close the parentheses. And as I said, Obsidian puts this symbol in there. What displays is simply what I have in the brackets. That's the link. And if I click it, as you would expect, my browser opens in Google. Here's another external link to a website I created, to the Obsidian Help website. In brackets, I put Obsidian Help. Again, I could put anything I want there. And in parentheses, the exact URL or address of the Obsidian Help website. If I click that, my browser opens in the Obsidian Help website. What I've just described and demonstrated is how you create a link to a website manually. Another option is to copy and paste a website's URL into a note. That's self-explanatory. There's no need to demonstrate that. Just copy the URL, paste it into a note, and Obsidian will automatically create a link to that website. But if you want to create one manually, you do it in this fashion. Now, a problem can arise if the website you're linking to has spaces in any part of its title. Obsidian cannot interpret a website address that has spaces in it. There are two ways for you to handle this. One way is to replace those spaces with %20, %20. Wherever there's a space in the website address, you replace that space with %20. By the way, there shouldn't be a space here. This is a typo. Sorry about that. Same here. Replace that space with %20. The other option, the easier option, is to enclose the entire website address in pointy brackets. If you use either of these methods, you can overcome the problem of a website that has spaces in its address. Okay, there are a couple of topics related to links that I did not cover because they're really not used frequently. They're kind of special use cases, and I wanted to keep this on the basic and intermediate level. I'll mention them in case you're interested. With what you've learned here as a foundation, I'm sure you'll have no trouble seeing how to use them. One of them is the ability to link across vaults. You can actually link from a node in one vault to a node in another vault. I've never had need to do that. So as I said, I'm not covering it here. Another topic I didn't cover is the ability to link to a block of text in a vault. This is something other than using subheadings, which I did demonstrate. There is a way to identify blocks of text with a caret symbol and then link to those particular identified blocks of text. Again, I've never had need for this. The subheading link has been sufficient for me to link to particular blocks of text of text in my notes. So I'll just mention those so that you're aware of them in case it's something you're interested in. So there you have it, the basics of creating and using links in Obsidian. As I noted at the outset, links arguably represent Obsidian's most powerful feature. Once you master the fundamentals of creating and employing links in your Obsidian projects, you will be equipped to create true personal knowledge management systems with Obsidian. Okay, fellow Obsidizens, that's all I have for now. I'll see you in the next video. Happy note-taking.